There's no turning back now. We face this together.
The year was 1968, and Hollywood had never seen anything like this before. Steve McQueen, the king of cool himself, was about to make the most dangerous introduction in entertainment history. A dusty road in the California desert. The roar of motorcycles cutting through the night air. And Bruce Lee, the martial arts master who could kill a man with his bare hands in 3 seconds, walking straight into the most feared motorcycle club in America, the Hells Angels. What happened that night stayed secret for decades. Only 6 people witnessed what went down inside that clubhouse. But today, you're going to hear the whole story, a tale of respect, danger, and an unlikely friendship that changed both men forever. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. This is the kind of Hollywood story they don't teach in film school, and you won't want to miss what happens next. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Bruce Lee stood in the doorway of the Hells Angels clubhouse, his eyes scanning the room filled with leather-clad bikers who just stopped their card game to stare at him. Steve McQueen stood beside him, grinning like he just delivered the punchline to the world's most dangerous joke. But this wasn't a joke. This was the night that would test everything Bruce Lee believed about respect, courage, and the universal language of strength. The unlikely friendship. Steve McQueen wasn't just any Hollywood actor. By 1968, he was the highest-paid movie star in the world, famous for doing his own stunts and living life on the edge. He raced cars, flew planes, and rode motorcycles faster than most professional racers. The man didn't know the meaning of fear, or maybe he just chose to ignore it. Bruce Lee, on the other hand, was still climbing his way up in Hollywood. He'd starred in the Green Hornet TV series, but America wasn't ready to give an Asian actor leading roles yet. Despite his incredible martial arts skills and magnetic personality, he was still fighting for recognition in an industry that couldn't see past his ethnicity. The two men had met at a martial arts demonstration in Los Angeles 6 months earlier. McQueen was immediately fascinated by Bruce's philosophy and fighting technique. He started taking private lessons, showing up at Bruce's small studio 3 times a week, always on time, always respectful. Most Hollywood guys want to learn martial arts so they can show off at parties, Bruce told his wife Linda. But Steve? He actually wants to understand it. He listens. Their friendship grew beyond the training sessions. They'd grab burgers after workouts, talk about philosophy, and share their frustrations about the entertainment industry. Steve admired Bruce's discipline and wisdom. Bruce appreciated Steve's authenticity. Here was a major star who treated him as an equal, not as some exotic curiosity. The challenge. The trouble started at a Hollywood party in early October. A stunt coordinator named Rick Dawson had been drinking too much and started running his mouth about martial arts being fake fighting compared to real street brawling. "These kung fu guys are just dancers," Rick slurred, loud enough for half the party to hear. Put Bruce Lee in a real fight with some actual tough guys, and he'd run home crying. Word got back to Bruce, as it always does in Hollywood. He wasn't angry, he'd heard worse, but Steve McQueen was furious. "That loudmouth needs to learn some respect," Steve told Bruce over coffee the next morning. "I've got an idea, but you need to trust me on this one." Bruce raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." The Hells Angels have a clubhouse about 40 miles outside the city. I know some of the guys there. I ride with them sometimes. Toughest bunch you'll ever meet. Real street fighters, not movie tough guys. If you can walk into their clubhouse, earn their respect, and walk out in one piece, nobody in this town will ever question your abilities again. Bruce was quiet for a long moment, sipping his tea. "You're talking about respect, not fighting." "Exactly," Steve said, his blue eyes intense. "You don't have to fight anyone. You just have to show them who you are. The real you. Not the TV character, not the Hollywood version. Just Bruce Lee, martial artist and human being." The journey begins. The following Saturday, just as the sun was setting, Steve McQueen pulled up to Bruce Lee's house in his pickup truck. In the back, 2 motorcycles gleamed under the streetlights. "I thought we were taking your car," Bruce said, walking out of his house wearing jeans and a simple black shirt. Steve grinned. "Not to meet the angels, brother. We ride, or we don't show up at all. It's a respect thing. Bruce had ridden motorcycles before, but nothing like the powerful Triumph that Steve handed him the keys to. As they fired up the engines and rolled out into the cooling evening air, Bruce felt something he rarely experienced, genuine uncertainty. The 40-mile ride took them through the suburbs of Los Angeles, past the city lights, and into the darker, rougher territory of the California desert. The landscape changed from manicured lawns to dusty roads, from bright streetlights to nothing but starlight and the beam of their headlights cutting through the darkness. Arriving at the clubhouse. The Hells Angels clubhouse sat at the end of a dirt road, a low building that looked more like an old warehouse than anything else. Motorcycles lined the front, dozens of them, their chrome reflecting the light spilling from the windows. The sound of rock music and rough laughter drifted out into the night. As Steve and Bruce pulled up, the music inside suddenly stopped. The front door opened, and 3 large men stepped out, backlit by the interior lights, their shadows stretching across the dirt like warning signs. McQueen, one of them called out, his voice neither friendly nor hostile. Didn't expect you tonight. Got someone I want you to meet, Bones, Steve said easily, cutting his engine and swinging off his bike. Bruce dismounted more slowly, his senses on high alert. He could feel eyes watching from the windows, assessing him, measuring him against some invisible standard that he didn't yet understand. Bones was the club's sergeant-at-arms, a mountain of a man with a thick beard and arms like tree trunks. His leather vest was covered in patches, each one representing battles fought and survived. He looked Bruce up and down with eyes that had seen things most people only had nightmares about. This the kung fu guy from TV? Bones asked, but he wasn't asking Bruce, he was asking Steve. As if Bruce couldn't speak for himself. The first test, being dismissed. I'm Bruce Lee, Bruce said quietly but firmly, meeting Bones's stare without flinching. And yes, I teach martial arts. Bones laughed, not a mean laugh, but not a welcoming one either. Steve, you brought a celebrity to our clubhouse? What's next? You bringing movie cameras? I brought a martial artist, Steve said. And a friend. Thought you guys might want to meet someone who actually lives what he teaches, instead of just talking about being tough. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Bruce noticed movement in the windows, more faces appearing, more men coming to see what was happening. He counted at least 15, maybe 20 bikers inside and outside the clubhouse. Look, Bones said, his voice dropping lower. No disrespect, but this ain't a place for Hollywood people. We got our own world out here, and it don't mix with yours. Bruce felt the dismissal like a physical blow. Not because it was hostile, but because it was something he'd experienced his whole life in America, being judged before anyone knew who he really was. Being seen as an outsider, as someone who didn't belong, as less than. But he also recognized something else in Bones's eyes. It wasn't hatred. It was protection. These men had built something here, a brotherhood, a sanctuary from a world that judged them too. They were defending their space, their identity, their right to exist on their own terms. Bruce understood that better than most people ever could. The philosophy lesson. Can I ask you something? Bruce said, his voice calm and respectful. Bones shrugged. Free country. When you ride your motorcycle, do you think about every small movement? Every shift in balance, every adjustment of the throttle? Bones frowned, confused by the question. No. You just ride. It becomes natural. Exactly, Bruce said. That's what martial arts is. It's not about fancy moves for cameras. It's about training your body and mind until action becomes natural, until you respond without thinking, until you and your environment become one thing. He gestured to the motorcycles lined up outside the clubhouse. You understand this. When you're on that bike doing 80 miles an hour on a dangerous road, you're not thinking about being tough. You're not trying to prove anything. You're just being what you are. That's what martial arts taught me, how to be what I am, fully and completely, without apology. Several bikers had now emerged from the clubhouse, forming a loose semicircle around the conversation. Their body language was still guarded, still skeptical, but Bruce noticed something shifting. They were listening now, really listening. The real challenge emerges. A younger biker, maybe 25 years old with long hair and a scarred face, pushed through the crowd. His name was Tommy, and Bruce could see immediately that he had something to prove. "That's a nice speech," Tommy said, his voice edged with challenge. "But talk is cheap. You want respect here? You got to earn it." Steve McQueen tensed, his hand moving slightly as if ready to intervene, but Bruce caught his eye and gave a tiny shake of his head. This was his moment to handle. "You're right," Bruce said simply. "Talk is cheap. What would you like to see?" Tommy smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "You're supposed to be fast, right? How about you show us some of that kung fu speed?" The crowd murmured. This was the moment they'd been waiting for. The outsider either proving himself or being exposed as just another Hollywood fake. Bruce looked around at the faces surrounding him. He saw skepticism, yes, but also curiosity. These were men who lived in a world where strength and skill meant survival. They could respect genuine ability, but they had no patience for pretense. "I'll show you," Bruce said. "But first, I need someone to hold this." He pulled out a dime from his pocket. The demonstration. "Hold this dime in your open palm," Bruce said to Tommy. "When I move, you close your hand as fast as you can. If you're fast enough to catch the dime before I take it, I'll leave right now. If I take it, you accept that what I teach is real." Tommy grinned confidently. This seemed too easy. How fast could anyone really be? He held out his hand, palm up, the dime sitting in the center. Bruce stood relaxed, his hand at his side, no tension visible in his body. The crowd pressed closer, everyone wanting to see what would happen. "Ready?" Bruce asked. Tommy nodded, his entire focus on keeping that dime in his hand. What happened next took less than a second, but everyone present would remember it for the rest of their lives. Bruce's hand moved, not in a wild, flashy way, but with the speed and precision of a striking snake. Before Tommy's brain could even register the movement and signal his hand to close, Bruce had already plucked the dime from his palm and returned his hand to his side. Tommy stood there, his fist clenched, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. Slowly, he opened his hand. Empty. Bruce held up the dime between his thumb and forefinger. The clubhouse exploded with reactions, shouts of disbelief, laughter, demands to see it again. Tommy himself was laughing now, shaking his head in amazement. "Do it again," someone called out. That was too fast. Breaking down the walls. For the next hour, what had started as a tense confrontation transformed into something else entirely. Bruce demonstrated techniques, not as showmanship, but as education. He explained the physics of his movements, the years of training required, the philosophy behind the action. When a biker asked how to defend against a knife attack, Bruce didn't just show him, he explained why most people freeze in dangerous situations and how training can rewire your response. When another asked about street fighting versus martial arts, Bruce broke down the similarities and differences with respect for both approaches. "The truth is," Bruce said to the gathered crowd, "we're not so different. You guys have your code, your brotherhood, your way of being in the world. Martial arts is my way of finding the same things: discipline, respect, truth." Bones, who'd been watching silently from his position near the clubhouse door, finally spoke up. "You know what? You're all right, Lee. Steve was right to bring you here." He extended his hand, and Bruce shook it firmly. The gesture wasn't lost on anyone present. In the world of the Hells Angels, Bones's approval carried weight. The unexpected gift. "Come inside," Bones said, gesturing toward the clubhouse. "Anyone who can move that fast deserves a beer and a proper conversation." Inside, the atmosphere was completely different from what Bruce had imagined. Yes, there was the expected rough edge, the smell of motor oil and beer, the walls covered in motorcycle memorabilia and defiant slogans. But there was also laughter, genuine camaraderie, and a sense of belonging that Bruce recognized instantly. These men had been outcasts too, in their own way. Society feared them, judged them, dismissed them as criminals or thugs. But here, in this space they'd created for themselves, they were simply brothers supporting each other through life's challenges. The president of the chapter, a man named Jack who'd been watching from the back room, finally emerged. He was older than the others, maybe 50, with gray streaking through his beard and eyes that had seen decades of roads and experiences. "Bruce Lee," Jack said, extending his hand. "Welcome to our home." The real victory. As the night wore on, Bruce found himself in deep conversation with men he never would have met otherwise. They asked him about philosophy, about his journey from Hong Kong to America, about his struggles in Hollywood. In turn, they shared their own stories, veterans who couldn't adjust to civilian life, working-class men who found brotherhood on the road, guys who'd made mistakes and found redemption in the club. Steve McQueen sat back, watching with satisfaction. He'd known this would happen. He'd seen both sides, Hollywood Bruce and real Bruce, and he'd known that once these men saw past the surface, they'd recognize something genuine. "You know what your problem is in Hollywood?" Jack said to Bruce as the night grew late. "Same problem we got in the regular world. People see what they want to see, not what's actually there. They see a Chinese guy and think foreigner. They see us and think criminals. But you and us? We're just trying to live authentic lives on our own terms." Bruce nodded slowly. "That's exactly it. The hardest fight isn't physical. It's the fight to be seen for who you really are." The lasting impact. Before they left that night, Bones pulled Bruce aside. "Look, I'm going to be straight with you. We don't usually do this, but you showed us respect tonight. Real respect, not the fake Hollywood stuff. If you ever need anything, and I mean anything, you got brothers here." He handed Bruce a small pin, the Hells Angels emblem. "You're not a member. Can't make you that. But this shows you're a friend of the club. That means something out here." Bruce accepted the pin with genuine gratitude. This wasn't about status or bragging rights. It was about connection, about being recognized and valued by people who had no reason to care about his fame or his skills beyond what he'd shown them as a human being. As Bruce and Steve rode back toward Los Angeles under a sky full of stars, Bruce felt something shift inside him. The rejection from Hollywood, the constant battle for respect in an industry that didn't want him, it all felt less heavy somehow. "You know why I brought you there?" Steve called over the sound of the engines. "Tell me," Bruce called back. "Because you needed to remember something. You're always fighting so hard to prove yourself in Hollywood, trying to break through walls that might never come down. But there's a whole world out here beyond those walls. People who'll respect you for who you are, not what Hollywood thinks you should be." The final wisdom. 3 years later, Bruce Lee would leave Hollywood and return to Hong Kong, where he'd make the movies that would turn him into an international superstar. He'd go on to revolutionize martial arts cinema and become one of the most influential cultural figures of the 20th century. But he never forgot that night in the desert. Years later, when asked about his philosophy of martial arts, Bruce would often talk about breaking down artificial barriers, about finding common ground with people who seemed completely different, about the universal language of respect and authenticity. "I learned martial arts in Hong Kong," he once said in an interview. "But I learned about respect in the most unexpected places, from bikers and outsiders, from people the world overlooked, just like they overlooked me." The 6 witnesses to that night, Bones, Tommy, Jack, Steve, and 2 other club members whose names stayed private, never forgot it either. They'd seen something rare, a moment when 2 different worlds collided and, instead of violence or rejection, found mutual understanding. Steve McQueen kept riding with the Hells Angels for years. He and Bruce remained close friends until Bruce's tragic death in 1973. After Bruce died, Steve attended the funeral, and sitting in that chapel, he remembered the night in the desert when his friend had earned respect not through fighting, but through simply being exactly who he was. The universal truth. The real lesson of that night wasn't about martial arts or motorcycle clubs. It was about something deeper. The human need to be seen, understood, and accepted for who we really are. Bruce Lee faced Hollywood's rejection not with bitterness, but by finding validation in unexpected places. The Hells Angels, dismissed by society as criminals and outcasts, showed more genuine respect to a stranger than the entertainment industry showed to one of its most talented performers. Both Bruce and the bikers understood something fundamental. Authenticity recognizes authenticity. Strength respects strength. And sometimes the most powerful victories come not from defeating others, but from refusing to let the world define you on its narrow terms. If this story moved you, if it made you think differently about respect, authenticity, or finding your place in the world, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button right now. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. And drop a comment below telling us about a time when you found respect in an unexpected place. Your story might inspire someone else who's struggling to be seen for who they really are. The world tried to put Bruce Lee in a box. He broke out of it by being unapologetically himself. The Hells Angels lived outside society's approval. Together, they found common ground that taught both sides something valuable about the human spirit. What boxes is the world trying to put you in? And what would happen if you had the courage to break out? Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep riding your own road, whoever you are and wherever it leads. This story is based on documented accounts of the friendship between Steve McQueen and Bruce Lee, though specific details of their private interactions remain part of Hollywood legend. Both men lived lives that challenged conventions and inspired millions to embrace authenticity over acceptance.